I'm interviewing Julie Stanton from Cana Communities, which is a Cana cafe. And my first question is, how did Cana get its name?
Cana originally came from the section in the Bible that talks about the story of celebration, and it talks about, I think that originally what happened was that they'd run out of wine, and so they considered it to be a miracle that the water then changed to wine. So that was the original story.
Yep. One more question. How did the idea of Cana evolve?
I mean, that's an interesting one, because I think that the fellow who first started Cana, which was many, many years ago, was a priest. And his concept of working with the poor was to share a meal. That he felt it was important that everybody be around a table and that they share a meal together. So that was why they decided to call it Cana, because obviously that was the celebration and the meal at that time with Jesus.
Who makes up Cana Communities?
Cana's an interesting model because it's run totally by volunteers. We have a board, and we have a woman whose name is Sister Ann Jordan, who effectively is the CEO, and then everybody underneath that umbrella is a volunteer. So it works on a relational model, and it works on with the view that if people are not being paid, then they can follow their passion, so therefore will be more enthusiastic.
And how does Cana operate?
In chaos, really. We operate depending on the people that we work with and depending on the volunteers that we have at the time. So at different times we have a lot of houses, residential houses, because we have people who are enthusiastic to work in that environment. At other times we have cafes, at other times we have children's programs. It's really very dependent on whoever's in front of us, whether it be the volunteer or the person in need.
How does Cana survive?
Personal donations. We don't take any government funding, and we don't take any church funding. And the reason that we do that is because then we're not restricted with who we support.
Yep. What makes Cana unique?
I think there's lots of aspects of that. Probably that it's completely chaotic, that there's an acceptance of every group and type of person, that it's run by volunteers, and that we don't take funding. So there's lots of things that make it very different.
How important is education in Cana's vision?
Look, I think it's become more so as we have seen the difference in the self-esteem of people. My belief is education is a key to a different life, but the initial phase of building a relationship and building somebody's self-esteem so that they feel that they can make a decision to educate themselves to do something differently. So I see it as a very important component.
For example, how does an ex-prisoner or a person in prison hear about Cana?
We have a lot of connections with a range of the services. We don't operate any services, and we don't see ourselves as professional people who are offering services. But what happens for the guys in jail is if they haven't anywhere else to stay and they're not going into rehab, but they see that they want to make a change to the way they've managed their lives, they know that they can come through the counsellors in prison, through the ministers, and we then set up an appointment to see them in jail, and we make a connection at that time, and then they have the freedom to make the choice about whether they'd like to come and spend some time.
Okay. And how can people get involved with Cana?
Anybody can get involved at any time, and it's just really about connecting up with either the very dodgy website or by any of the volunteers who operate the different sections. So it's very accessible.
Yeah, my last question, what is the future for Cana?
I don't think we ever know. I think that's also very dependent on people who are happy to create environments. So, I mean, at the moment we have shelters and we have residential places and we have a cafe and now we have education, and it's very dependent on who's running the community at the time. So I think that it's just about whatever happens.
That's it.
Great.
Done?